you for coming. In response to our request, and the commissioners are not here today. There seems to be a controversy as to whether they can answer questions from us on the open meeting law. It's an issue. I don't know if that's why they're not here, but you're here. So if you want to let us know what progress you've made on this and give us a heads up, you got the chair, you got the floor.
Well, he's senior, so I'll let him start off.
I don't know what that means. Well, we've had an interaction with commissioners, and they've had a concern about what perspectives we might have on.
Mike?
Oh, thank you. On it's been a while since we've been in front of the mic, so. We're curious about our perspective on where we think the county might be going, what functional role it might play going forward. Well aware, of course, under the charter you have a review capacity built in, but given Rob's background with the county and my background with, the formulation of the structure that you have now, the Cape Cod Commission, a variety of other things, that there would be perhaps an opportunity to look in a comprehensive way across the functions of the county, put a group together, the structure of the county, and have a discussion, make some recommendations. To that end, our progress has been, we've been ruminating a bit on what the composition of such a group would be. We've been seeking some input from folks who might not be good to serve on that. And the thought would be, I think within a couple of weeks, that we would organize a group. I think would operate under the open meeting law. That's not too dangerous or abstract a concept to operate under. Subject ourselves to ethics. I certainly have a conflict that I disclosed to the county on one subject matter, energy, which you've just been talking about, that I would recuse myself from and move forward. So with a review that would take, we've discussed, 6 months, 8 months, somewhere in there, some hearings, a broad, diverse group, and see what we couldn't come up with that would provide maybe some insight or some guidance or some thoughts on where the county goes.
I think Henri said it very well. We both have quite a bit of history in terms of the original creation of the county charter and the Cape Cod Commission and clearly the Cape Light Compact and other organizations as well over time. So between the two of us, there is a lot of experience, but we were basically asked by the commissioners to take a look at a kind of comprehensive look at county government. They gave us a chart. It's fairly broad and sweeping. I don't know if you've seen a copy of it. Well, that's a problem.
They've been a little reticent in including us in the.
That's why we can't. As you know, Ron, I suggested that we really come in here and listen to you and get some input from this organization as to how you feel about this effort, and is it something that you're willing to sort of be a part of? And we have no real authority. We don't have any elected authority. We don't have sort of a dog in the race here. We only have the authority that's delegated to us by the county commissioners, and frankly, the political authority that comes from county government and the general public. But we thought that it would be useful to take a look and involve people from various parts of the community. And I think the whole idea, the fundamental idea behind it, I believe, is that it's really, is there a way to strengthen regional government here on the Cape by revisiting some of the structural components of it and look at how it's working, what is working well and what isn't working well. But I think the fundamental objective is to create an entity that's stronger and able to carry on a larger role on the Cape than is the case today. I believe that's what the commissioner's objective is, and I know it would be mine as someone involved in that, and I believe that applies to Henri as well. We're really open to what you have to say. Is this something you're willing to support or not? You know, there's, and I'll leave it at that.
Anyone have anything to say, Leo? You're holding fort today.
I find it peculiar that, your statement is to get a stronger and better regional government, and quite frankly, and I only speak on a personal level now, I'm not speaking as for the Assembly at all, but just as a member here. I think this process in forming this committee has been confusing, has been misleading, and I still don't understand it. I don't have a problem with you two gentlemen. I think very highly of both of you. You certainly have got far more experience in county government than I probably will have in my lifetime, and I think that we would be well served by both of you. But I just don't understand the structure of this committee. Are you two gentlemen going to be going out and picking the people that will be serving on this? If I were a sitting county commissioner, I would have a problem with that. I think the county commissioners should be advertising, should be going to different boards and committees that they already have currently serving, should be handpicking some people to be on this, because in fact, if they're the ones creating this subcommittee, then they're the ones that should be responsible or the appointing authority to be putting the people on there. With that said, I also don't have a problem with you two gentlemen doing this on your own, and why you have to have the backing, if you will, of the county commissioners. Why you guys can't go out as members of the public and form your own committee where you guys will be picking who is put on it, and you will be selecting the people that you will be receiving testimony from, and you will still have the same impact, coming forward to the county commissioners with a list of suggestions that will make county government better. Quite frankly, I think, and you all snickered and laughed, but I think it's a better way of doing it, because you won't be under the auspice of government and having to handle yourself as a government entity. You'll be a private group meeting, following open meeting laws, certainly, inviting the public to come and comment. But I think it would be a freer group to formulate opinions and suggestions to bring back to the commissioners. But it all goes back to the essence of government again. Here we have commissioners that came in front of us, 6, 7 months ago, and said that they were going to do this. And as members of the public, they haven't been notified of this new standing committee. They haven't been, I don't believe anyhow, to my knowledge, there's been no formal requests put out to selectmen or I don't know, other groups, other government groups, to who they're going to pick to be on this. I was on the Charter Review Committee for the Assembly, and I will tell you, because I do believe that the Charter needs to be looked at, and I do believe that the what we're doing. You mentioned the charge. We have formally requested the charge as the Assembly of Delegates, and the only copy I have received is something that says draft on the top of it. So again, I don't know where we're going with this. You asked for, I want to know our input and our support. I want to know what you're doing and who's appointing this board, and before I can lend support to it. I certainly, the concept, I personally do support, but I need it to be more clarified. Who are you being appointed by? Who are you working for? Who are you answering to? And do you not feel that you would be better served if you were just a private entity?
Well, no. I mean,
Would you use the microphone, please, Senator?
Any group of citizens can get together and reflect and opine on their local governments. There's certainly no doubt about that. We were asked by the commissioners if we'd entertain this. Its rollout has been slow, only I think for a variety of complex things like our schedules, where we've been getting together, having the time. I think there's more weight to this, if indeed it is sort of a function of an elected body, suggesting that we do. The state legislature does this all the time across all spectrums. You know, the governor has commissions that he'll put together. The legislature does. They both share in all of this. In terms of the membership, you know, we've discussed some names. We've circulated it to them. You know, a few of them, not all of them. We've had people come in and say, can they have input into this? We know at the meeting we had with the commissioners, several of the members of the assembly attended that meeting. It wasn't like, you know, this was a little while ago, maybe a month and a half or 2 months ago, suggesting that this, you know, would we be interested? These were the kinds of things, you know, a draft followed. It took us a while to get a draft sort of action, you know, from the county. But your members were there. Obviously, there was an awareness that this process is unfolding, albeit slow or otherwise. I think part of us being here today, Rob's interaction with the speaker, was that you'd like to be more informed about this, and we're here. This is starting. I don't imagine it would really roll out until August, or maybe even a little bit after that. In terms of who will sit on this, I imagine that the designation of that would be by the commissioners. I think we make recommendations to that. You know, we've talked to different people. There's nothing that would obviate your ability to say, we think so-and-so would be good. I know we've discussed the speaker would have a role on this. Are there others that you would recommend? We're open to that. So it's not, you know, it's not a dark sort of process. It's been a slow process. It's open, and we're amenable to, I think, interacting with anybody that would want to interact with us, either at the elected level, administrative level, or the general public, citizenry level.
Spiro? Senators, thanks for coming. I, for one, welcome the initiative that the commissioners are taking, and I'm very happy that you both agreed to chair this group. There is a precedence. They did something similar a few years ago with the 21st Century Task Force, which looked at the workings of the Cape Cod Commission. I think it was a very successful process, engaged a lot of and diverse opinion to come out with a very strong outcome. That outcome, however, was affected administratively. In other words, the committee made recommendations, and the commissioners were able to affect those changes with and together with the Cape Cod Commission delegates themselves, representatives themselves. I think what you may be bumping up to a little bit here is a sensitivity with the Assembly's purview to former Charter Review Committee, and that this may be leapfrogging that process. I, for one, consider it a precursor to that process. I think if you expend the necessary amount of energy and effort to come up with appropriate recommendations that the commissioners can then put on the tables, that I, for one, as in somebody, would look at it as the starting point of the next Charter Review Committee. So good luck in your endeavor. As a personal preference, I'd rather not see commissioners or delegates on this thing. You should certainly invite us in to observe and to participate if you'd like us to, but I think because you are reviewing commissioners and delegates, it's probably not a good idea to have them on the committee at this point.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I feel really happy that you are taking your valuable time to do something like this, and I look forward to anything, especially Rob. With, you know, he's been on every bit of Barnstable County government for so many years. But if you're looking for directions from me in my 15th year in the Assembly, we talk a lot about regionalization, and I think it's the most important thing we can possibly do to go forward. But we hit a brick wall every time. There is really no town wants to give up any of their parochial rights and places. And I think both of you have done that from, I think Henri's been started as a board of selectmen in the 60s, right? And you've been on every level.
60s. I was at camp. I was a brave at Camp Monomoy in 1960.
Well, anyway, what I want to get across is...
Around 81 to 83, I think.
What I want to get across is that towns are under enormous pressures, as is the state. Everything is collapsing financially on everybody in pressures. And I think we really can be a more regionalization-oriented commission and county. And I think that's where we need to go, is there a real way to get there? Can we cross that bridge and get the towns to buy in? And if you can do that, I think that this will be very successful. I think we're a very well-run county. I'm just not sure that going forward that we can reach into where we really need to reach into. Or maybe we're too broad in our departments and we're going too many different directions. And if we can concentrate on helping the towns survive and thrive, I think that's the most important thing I would like to see out of this.
I'd just like to explain one of the reasons why I had been contacting Senator O'Leary, which I probably should have done long before, is that I was at a meeting in Chatham, and there was some of our delegation there. And one of them was your successor, was Senator Wolf, and he gave an update on business before, what he anticipated would be the business before the legislature. And he rambled off a few things, and you know, the usual things that are going on. And to the end, he said, "Oh, and there may be some changes in county government. There's a board looking at county government, and I anticipate there may be some changes." So, to make it, and his quote, his words, he said, "to make it more responsive to the towns." Now, I don't know how much Dan Wolf really knew about it, but that comment raised two red flags to me. One is he's already been contacted, that he may be asked to make some changes. And secondly, he said, I wanted to make it more responsive to the towns. Now, I answer to the people who voted for me. Chatham, to me, is an electoral district. It's not a town. The town has other things they do. But Chatham is my electoral district, just like, for instance, this district here, District 10 or District 11. And it's the same true with all the assembly. We answer directly to the people who vote for us. Now, that wasn't always the case, as Rob may remember. At one point, they did have some kind of financial oversight, but we changed the charter. And now, I mean, all of this is just, you know, hearsay and so on. And I, once again, when I was on the Charter Review Committee with Leo, I thought it should go forward. I even mentioned contacting you. I thought, and contacting you before the commissioners did, but the assembly decided not to go in that direction. I have to respect the review. The only other comment I have is that the other issues that we have, and I don't know if they're really issues because, once again, we haven't been kept up to speed on this, is that there have been people who have made presentations already. In other words, we have the Business Roundtable. Elliot Carr gave a presentation. Actually, I haven't got it, and I think that one of the members do, as suggestions already on the table. So that gives us the impression there are people out there who, I would say, have an agenda, but they have a direction already that they want this to go. And I know the League of Women Voters has been very influential in trying to refocus people's attention on county government. So, you know, I'd say it makes us nervous, but you know how politics is. You know, what's going on here? You know, is there some kind of agenda that we don't know about? Now, I have ultimate respect for both of you, so I'm sure if the people come with an agenda, you're going to recognize it and you know, take that into consideration. And the third thing that my concern, and it speaks to what some of the other members have said, Leo and Spiro, is that when the Charter Review Committee looked at it, it was appointed according to an ordinance, so many delegates and so many people from districts. And I said, you know, in the towns, you don't usually have the sitting people do a charter review. It's usually totally independent. You know, you don't have the selectmen deciding whether they want to reorganize. So I thought that a committee similar to the one that the commissioners already appointed would be better if it was totally independent. I mean, obviously you have to be appointed by the commissioners, but now you're reporting back to the commissioners, you know. And I thought it was a defect when the Charter Review Committee reported back, as it currently in the Charter, reported back to us. Because suppose I wanted to change you know, that's one thing that we looked at seriously changing. I didn't necessarily support it. We looked at seriously changing the composition of the Assembly of Delegates. There were some concerns. And we said, well, we're not going to do this because to do that, we'd have to go back to the Assembly and have to approve. They'd have to approve it. And it was unlikely that they would do it. So there was kind of a conflict. So I haven't talked to the commissioners about it. They're not here. I presume you're going to, and I would insist that they give you total independence.
Just so you know, we're scheduled to meet with them tonight.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And, you know, we have no a priori assumptions. I think what is interesting is that, you know, most of the review sort of facet of this is the towns and the county. In reality, what both Senator O'Leary and I sort of have, as well as this broader perspective of what's going on at the state level, and which is as important to you functionally as, you know, what's been going on for the last 20 or so years at this level. So this interaction is something that I think we're kind of excited about exploring. Because the Commonwealth in and of itself for the next 5 or so years or maybe longer is going to have the same serious fiscal issues that it has now, and how do they provide the services they provide. So I think that our perspective is that there's some new sort of arenas that we can look at in the context of how best and effectively to serve the citizens of the county. And part of that premise is, the demise of county government in the Commonwealth really came during the Delegates years when he took Medicaid away from the counties. That was really functionally the end. That took an enormous amount of money and power and started the process whereby counties diminished and have disappeared across. But the fact is that we have a viable, strong regional government here, and there may be synergies that exist that we'd like to explore. I mean, I find that, within reason, an exciting part of looking at this, but we haven't chosen the path that we're following. We're wandering along.
That should make you very nervous.
As demonstrated by the previous discussion, we're wandering along too. So
he's a little famous for wandering. But let me reiterate and sort of reinforce what Henri just said, and that is, and I've listened to Senator Murray on frequent occasion talk about, this is the worst year in the state budget, and I think it is in many respects, and that there'll be some, hopefully the situation is going to improve modestly next year or so, but the long-term trends, particularly with respect to healthcare and healthcare costs at the state level, are such that I think the pressures on the state ability to finance, in terms of municipal relief and such, is only going to get worse, not better. And the structural situation at the state level is only going to force communities to be much more aggressive about how they deal with their own financial situations. And I believe, and that's why I said what I said early on, I believe passionately that here on the Cape we have a unique situation that allows us to explore doing things regionally. We've been talking about it for 30 years. This is not a new topic, and all of you are very much aware of it. We've been involved and we've had a lot of success for all the, a lot of the recriminations that go around very often. When you look at where the Cape is relative to the rest of the state, we've had enormous success. But we're really, I think there's a sense now that we really need to take the next step. And this, we have no authority. You only have the authority you choose to give us. But we do have a lot of experience, and we do have a commitment to the same kind of values and goals that I think you have as well. And what we thought we would do is simply go ahead and put together a group, and there's some discussion now as to whether the commissioners should appoint them or whether we should just recommend people and move forward. I'm open to whatever you feel is the best way to proceed. But I think in the end, if we can put together a group of 15 to 20 people who are well respected, who have a lot of history and come from different parts of the community and different parts of the peninsula, and look at how we're organized and come up with some recommendations, and then you do what you will with them. That'll be your decision. It'll be the decision of the county commissioners. It'll be the decision of the public and the state legislators as to whether they want to move forward or not. But that's where I'm coming from. The only agenda item I have here is to strengthen the ability of the county to move forward, and that's my agenda. I'm bringing, and I suspect Henri as well shares that hope as well.
okay. Teresa, do you have a question?
I just wanted to add, I too was on the Charter Review Committee, and they did a great job doing a lot of cleanup stuff and getting ready to move to the next phase. And so I'm very excited that this can be part of what a next phase is. But one that really jumps out at me, and I hope we don't lose sight of it during this, is that we're at an inflection point in time where the definitions of who does what and what are appropriate ways to do things and even what needs to be done are kind of in flux. And I hope that the group you pull together looks at what role we communally take on not just assume that government does X, Y, and Z, and how do we do those things better, but as the world has changed, indeed, what are the core activities that should be undertaken, and what structure, throw away existing structure, don't go down that path, what structure supports that in the world that we're creating. And I really hope that your group is able to incorporate that kind of thinking in it, because it would be great to come up with recommendations that will give us a platform for the next 25 years of whatever it is we move forward with to, you know, make ourselves a great region.
I'd just like to say that one of the things, if you listen to the previous discussion, one of the things I realized over the last 10 or 15 years that I've been involved in local government is there's a lot going on that people don't know about. I mean, most people don't know what CVEC is. Most people don't know what the Cape Cod Compact is. When I was on the committee that ultimately presented the commissioners with the wastewater initiative, there was a blue ribbon panel and so on. I was on that, and we had a debate as to whether or not what would be the governing board of the wastewater panel, and Tom Bernardo was the speaker at that time, said, well, everyone has to get involved, and we'll have 15 members, one from each town. I thought, we got 15 members from each town on the wastewater panel, we got 15 members from each town on CVEC, we got 15 members from each town on the Cape Light Compact, we got 15 members from each town on the Assembly, you know, and I thought, even though there is a line that connects those people to the public, it really isn't from a practical standpoint there. I mean, they don't know what they do. And I always thought, and I know after complaining people have agendas, now you're going to hear my agenda is, I thought that when I was selectman, I did everything. I did zoning, you know, somebody would come to me with zoning, I did, you know, police and fire. I mean, it was, you know, kind of a walk and chew gum thing at the same time. You had to learn, you know, and you had people, professionals who did most of the work. Right? And eventually the wastewater panel, they looked at that and they came up with the same conclusion as I did. They said the connection was lost, and they tried to consolidate it, and all the towns jumped up and said, no, we want our individual members. Well, who are they? You know? So I wouldn't be beyond making the county government and the elected officials in the county government, the commissioners and the assembly, responsible for more than they're responsible for now, because they can complain, you know, if they don't like what goes on in the, you know, I'll take the Cape Cod Commission out of that because that's a total separate thing, but if they don't like what the wastewater panel is doing, I mean, they really have no recourse. But if they don't, if it's consolidated in county government and they say, geez, the county is doing this, they're going to call me up and they're going to say, hey, what's the story? You know? And so it's just my personal belief that any kind of reorganization of government, any kind of consolidation of government should maintain the ties between, as much as is practical, between the voters and the citizens and the people who represent them, even though they may be in semi-obscure things like parole boards and so on like that. There's got to be a tie, you know, and so that's my little push. Leo.
My colleague from Yarmouth mentioned the 21st Century Task Force, and I think that if you guys intend on putting a committee together and having the results that they had, you have to follow what they did. The commissioners did not appoint a chairman of the 21st Century Task Force and told him or her to go out and find yourself a committee and come back with changes to the Cape Cod Commission. That's not the avenue they took. They sent extensive requests out to towns looking for people who were interested in the Cape Cod Commission. And to my recollection, they got a lot of people who applied and had quite an extensive discussion about choosing the people to put on that 21st Century Task Force. And rightfully so, because the outcome, whether you agree with some of their recommendations or not, that was a diverse enough group that a lot of stuff was discussed and a lot of good came out of that. I go back to my original comments. I don't think that that's the way, it doesn't appear to me that that's the way this committee is being established or heading. I will reserve my comments for what I think a committee should do once you get established, and how you should look at, and maybe different types of government, as was mentioned earlier by some of my other colleagues. Right now, my main concern is who's appointing this committee and who are they? Where are they coming from? Who's recommending them? And I go back to my original comment. If it's something that you gentlemen feel that you could do more as a non-government affiliated group, bringing forward suggestions, then it may be the best avenue to take. If in fact it's going to be a county commissioners appointed group, then I think they need to do, and my comments will go to them, they need to do their due diligence requesting the public to get involved. And hopefully having a good spectrum of people to choose from and put on this committee.
Okay, yes, I recognize the members of the public. I recognize Ed Lewis, I'll get right back. Okay, Ed, do you have
No, that's okay. Well, I sit on the Democrats' lap before Republicans, so that's okay. I get a lot of emails about that. That's okay. The only thing that I would suggest when you do any of this stuff with regard to county government is I don't think the average citizen has a clue about how our county government works. Whether they know what the county commissioners do, whether they know what the Assembly of Delegates do, and I don't think for sure they know that the Assembly Delegates are weighted votes. So if you expand what the Assembly of Delegates do, then you expand the influence of 4 towns over the whole rest of the Cape. So I think that whenever you do any kind of county government thought process, that you work within the confines of figuring out how the public can be more aware of what the county does so they can get more involved in electing the people who represent them in the county government.
Thank you. Yes.
If I may, Mr. Speaker, I have to say, gentlemen, I'm really glad to see both of you here today. I was in the camp when this whole project started that was somewhat suspicious of the way it was suddenly put upon us and the fact that we haven't seen the charge. And then, lo and behold, we have 2 gentlemen with a great deal of credibility in this community that have agreed to lead this charge. I'm not sure where you're going, but I think what you've heard today is that there are a lot of different directions you can go in, and the path is, I think, fraught with difficulty. I hear, just listening this afternoon, from the range of strengthening regional government to protecting the individual cities and towns and being more responsive. I wish you well on your quest. You will have my cooperation.
Yes, Cheryl.
Thank you. I'll echo my colleagues and say it's great to see you both. 2 things. One is that we always chuckle when we talk about how many citizens on Cape Cod don't know about county government. They don't know who their rep is, or they don't know the commissioners, and they don't know we exist or what we do. I'd make the argument, just for the fun of it right now, that maybe that means we're actually doing a pretty good job. Based on what I heard in the room today, and what I've heard from some of the citizens in the last couple of weeks, it seems like people here only start to study government or county government when they're upset. So, gee guys, maybe the fact that they don't know a lot about county government is not necessarily a bad thing, but it means we're doing okay, we're doing our job well, and people aren't complaining about it. I'll leave you with that to think about. The second comment I'd like to make is I also agree with many of my colleagues that to the extent the membership of this committee that you're going to form stays independent, I think the more independent it is, meaning the more ability you folks exert in choosing the membership as opposed to the commissioners, I think the more it stays in your hands or stays independent of the county commissioners, the higher degree of probability for success it has. I really do, and I hope you take that from many of us today as a charge to see you succeed. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think you're just in time for a tape change, so if there's no more questions, thank you very much for coming. I want to discourage you from coming again, but we'll be back. I don't know if I'll stay. Maybe some of us will stay for the commissioners' meetings. They're due here pretty soon.
Are they here at 6:30?
I think so, yeah. They didn't tell us to vacate, but they said they were going to meet, so. Are there any further communications from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. You said,
No, I was leaving. I didn't know you were going to ask.
Why do people wait until I'm ready to move on, and then they jump up and they say, wait!
Maybe if you
come on.
just wanted to say...
No, you have to come to the microphone.
Yes, sorry. I think I'm the only person here.
Identify yourself for the public.
I'm Mary Lou Pettit from Eastham. I think I'm the only person here who worked with Roland DuPont, and so I wanted to acknowledge the great admiration I had for him and how much he is missed. He probably taught most of us who came to the Assembly everything you could ever teach anybody about government, and he's sadly missed. Roland had integrity, he had honesty, he was direct, meetings got focused and got accomplished quickly, so I will miss Roland a great deal, and I'm very appreciative of all he taught me. He never taught me to hide my feelings, but I told him he probably couldn't do that. The other thing I wanted to just say quickly, before you decide to appoint task forces, you might try to get your Brewster delegate back on the Assembly, because maybe that could have solved some of your questions. If you had a delegate from Brewster, you could say what is going on in Brewster, and you haven't had a delegate for many reasons, and that's nothing against him, except that I do think when you've got people who are supposed to be representing towns that are highlight your conversation and issues, you should go to that delegate, and you didn't have that one to go to. So I hope you may do something about that.
Okay. Any other members of the public wish to comment? Yes, I see a hand in the back.
Are we in session?
Yes, we just convened.
No, we haven't.
We're not. We're moving to the public.
Oh, okay, no, we haven't taken any. Committee of the whole.
My name is Lisa Connell. I actually live in Brewster, but I think of myself as living on Cape Town. And that's my first concern.
Is the mic on? Should you say a green light?
Your name again, please.
Pushing.
You're not down there.
Oh, push there. Oh.
Now you're on.
Now I'm on. Okay. My name is Joyce McConnell. I live in Brewster. But I think of myself as living on the Cape. I'm a retired president and CEO of a VNA and Public Health Nursing Agency and Hospice. And I think regionally in my head. And unlike what Mr. Lewis said about everybody being here is because of turbines, it's not. It's about process. And I'm delighted to hear of looking at reviewing the regional government, because I think the future of 220,000 people cannot afford to be broken down into little bits and pieces, as has happened throughout the communities looking at the things called turbines. Everybody has their own little town lines. Nobody looked beyond those town lines for any impacts or thinking or any creative out of the box. And I really hope and support you going forward and looking at the reviews and how to regionalize some of the pieces. We're regionalizing the schools. It's got to be done. You know, Nauset has one of the best regional high schools in the US of A, as of 2 years ago. There's a lot we can do together, but we have to think of ourselves more as one entity, and I thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Yes, quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. Mr. Speaker, I just like President Rudnick, I'd like to thank you for the time. I don't want to let Mr. Lewis's comment go by. Categorically, he's wrong. This has nothing to do. He made a claim this is not about the Brewster Project. We said it's transparency and accountability, and that's what we stand on. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to re-enter that debate. Anybody else in the public wish to comment on anything else? Okay, in that case, the Assembly will now convene, and we'll start with reports of committee. I don't think we don't have any committee reports that have met. The clerk has some minutes to approve. Do you have comments?
We've been trying to get these minutes and reports approved for the past several weeks. Our Standing Committee on Economic Affairs has been have a majority.
We do.
Take it away.
Yeah, I would like to move approval of the minutes of March 30th and February 16th of the Standing Committee on Economic Affairs.
Do I have a second on that? Well, actually, you're the chair, so you're running the meeting.
I'm running the meeting.
So you have to ask for a second.
Is there a second?
Second. Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye. We got three? That's all we need.
Three.
And then we have the Standing Committee on Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I would ask for approval of the Standing Committee Finance meeting on June 1st, 2011.
So moved.
That's a second.
Second.
If there's any other further discussion, I'd call for a vote. All those in favor of those minutes?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 4-0.
Okay, I guess, yeah.
Couple of quick items. I think everyone got their invitation to the AmeriCorps graduation. They're asking for RSVP. And stay tuned. I will email you with information on the annual co-op extension tour. It is going to be August 10th, and I'll give you the details in an email. That's it, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Is there any other business to be brought for the board? Start with Marcia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to submit an ordinance for $12,500 for the Human Services, a grant for the overnight of hospitalities that I had submitted previously. I have withdrawn the $25,000 for the Meals on Wheels, and this is just for $12,500. I think that we can have a public hearing in 2 weeks, and we talk to Diane Christie today about it.
Okay, I'll inform the chairman of the finance committee that that's coming.
Consider me informed.
Leo, has there been another ordinance filed with us today?
No, this is the only one that's been filed. John?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also, and several other members, I know Ms. Kane, I'm not sure about Tom. We served with Roland DuPont for years, and he was my mentor, my friend, and he was just a great asset. And as Mary Lou Pettit said, but I don't know if anybody, he died last night, and that's why we're talking about him. And he was just a great person and a great mentor to many members of the Assembly, including me. And I will greatly miss him. I know he was in poor health for several years, but may he rest in peace. He was a great asset to our regional government for many, many years. On a lighter note, I would like to formally ask if the Assembly would kindly meet at Nauset Beach on August 17th and stay for dinner after at Williams at Nauset Beach.
Second that motion.
I think we can arrange that. Okay, is there any other business to be brought before the Assembly?
Motion to adjourn, Commissioner.
Second.
And second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?